Hello everyone, my name is Martin and I'm part of the morning service at God First Parks. I've been deeply fascinated by the life of King David for a very long time. There's just so much to learn by looking at his life. One thing we can learn from him is courage, which I want to talk about today. But not courage in the way that you might expect. He lived 3,000 years ago. He had an extraordinary life and reigned as the king of the Israelites for 40 years. Even outside church circles, many secular books have been written about his life. But way before he became king and so well known, as a young teenager, he got into a fight that looked like one he's certain to lose. It's a long story, almost 60 verses in 1 Samuel 17. So I'll summarize it. The Israelite and Philistine armies are facing up to each other. And the Philistines have a secret weapon, a giant of a man. It's called Goliath. He's 2.5 meters tall and he has the best armor and weaponry of the day. He's also called the Philistine champion. And he comes up with a very cunning plan, something that plays into his favor. He says, let's not engage in full battle and all kill each other. Rather, let's each army select a champion, like an ambassador, to fight the battle on behalf of everyone. What a great plan. There's no loss of life. Only one person dies, not hundreds, maybe even thousands. But there's a problem, and it's a big problem. The Israelites have no one willing to take him on. And for 40 days, he taunts them. Without a volunteer, no one is happy to take him on. The bravest and the most experienced Israelite soldiers are fearful. But not David. He's immediately up for the challenge. His courage and the source of his courage is demonstrated by what he tells Goliath. He says, you come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel. And this day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. What extraordinary courage, confidence, and faith. And of course, now the outcome is well known. David secures the victory for the Israelite army. So unsurprisingly, people use him in this battle as an example of courage. How to approach the toughest challenges. How to tackle the big ones. Or as Malcolm Gladwell puts it, let David teach you the art of battling giants. Now, of course, as people, a nation and the world, we are going through a very challenging time. We need courage. The uncertainty around COVID, not knowing when it will end, perhaps losing a loved one or fearing for that. Maybe it's the loss of a job. It's quite obvious that we need courage to get through it. So what does this battle teach us as Christians about courage? How should we look at the story? How should we apply it to our lives today? The answer might surprise you. The typical understanding of it is that we will, in life, face troubles and challenges and tough times that look just as fearful and frightening as this giant Goliath. So to overcome these, we must trust in God, must be as courageous as David, tackle it in battle and overcome it. Or as my rugby coach used to say, the bigger the giant, the harder the fall. But those of you who have tried it know just how hard this can be. We can muster up this courage and energy for short bursts. But when we lose our job or a loved one gets really sick, we struggle. It's hard to follow David's example. It might work for a while, but it's just so hard to keep it up. Well, the good news is that I don't believe that we are expected to follow David's example of courage. When David wins, does he tell the other soldiers to copy his example? No. The victory is complete. He's done it. He saved the entire army. He's the representational savior of the Israelite army. So to get a biblical understanding of courage in the story, you must associate with the Israelites, not with David. You must associate with the people with their knees knocking. Isn't that more realistic? So what then does God give us in times when we need courage? Does he give us an example? No. He gives us a Savior. He doesn't deal with our fears through inspiration and telling us to just follow his example and muster up the courage. But rather he goes out and fight the battle on our behalf to save us, just like David did. So how do we know that this interpretation is right? If you go read Hebrews 11 and 12, the writer lists many of the Old Testament heroes, the heroes of faith, Jonah, Abraham, Moses, and David as well. But then he goes on to say, fix your eyes on Jesus. Do remember David? Yes. But fix your eyes on Jesus. David really just points us to the real champion. Let's look at the comparison. David saved his people at the risk of his life. And Jesus saves his people at the cost of his life. Yes, David goes into the valley of the shadow of death. But Jesus goes straight into death. So let's consider what you fear most. A loss of love, wealth, job, health, life. Losing all of these things are terrible, they're bad. Absolutely. I can identify with that. And we need courage to overcome those fears. God cares deeply about these fears and anxieties we have. But the ultimate worst thing that can happen to us is separation from God. That's forever. That's the ultimate poverty or loneliness. It's the real loss. Every other loss pales in comparison. And the good news is that on the cross, Jesus experienced that ultimate loss so that we don't have to. On the cross, he is our representative, just like David was. So it's good to understand what exactly true courage is. It's not the absence of fear. It doesn't work like that. But it is the assurance and even presence of joy. How do we get this assurance and therefore true courage? It comes from the knowledge and belief that nothing can separate us from God. And on the cross, Jesus took on the greatest nightmare, that separation from God. He took it on. And he won the battle. And that means that if we believe in him, we are finally safe. We might lose love or health or wealth here on earth. But the only debt that can destroy us forever, that debt has been paid. The only disease that can kill us forever, it's been healed. That should give us true courage, not short-term courage, where we have to work ourselves up. This is lasting and deep, true courage. We will overcome because he has overcome. That brings us to the end of this devotion. Have a wonderful week and remember our source of true courage.